Kaach Yaas, Chukanedi, Dukting Tanyedi, Kaach Hit, Huna Heritage. My English name, Gordon Greenwald, Kaach Yaas. I carry the name of Jimmy Young and other predecessors from the ice house in Glacier Bay. And this is home. My father is Dukting Town. My mother is non-native, came from Colorado. And so I've been here virtually all my life other than when I went to college. So I was around other people in Hoonah as they did the arts and cultural situations, but didn't practice it a lot as a child or a younger person. So, but yeah, I have since been involved culturally and worked with going back to Glacier Bay, our homelands, as well as here in Hoonah. I didn't do any of the artwork, or I was not even really exposed to many artists as a young person. And I didn't start practicing it until I came back to Hoonah as a teacher. And I guess accidentally figured out that I wanted to be able to make school relevant for some of our local students. And in order to make it relevant, I wanted to involve the culture in education. You know, I'd always have argued that studying Mark Twain and the Mississippi River was irrelevant, for I, even myself as an adult, had no clue what the Mississippi River was like. When I looked at it, Nika Bay River was the big one. And so I argued with English teachers all along, why don't you teach something that's more relevant to our students, which is our area that has some relevance to what their life is. And so in order for me to argue that point, I felt I had to also practice what I was preaching. And so I started in the woodshop trying to teach native art, but I could not teach Tlingit native art without knowing something about it. And so I started studying it, working with mentors and elders, and then continued to teach it for 20 plus years in the school system, but at the same time practicing it, forcing myself to continue to grow, hopefully, artistically and culturally, so that I could continue to pass it on. Then realizing that we were as a people were losing a lot of this information and history, and felt an obligation to continue to grow on my own so that I could help promote it and carry on what our elders were trying to carry on and hang on to. And so I've been doing this artwork now for probably 40 plus 50 years. And art is a term that's not a Tlingit word, because we didn't do these as art pieces. We did them as cultural pieces with some cultural significance. And so now we use the term art to describe them, but it's we didn't do them just to hang them on a wall like we would an art piece now. So although we do some pieces that are just, ornamental and maybe art, but so that's kind of where I got started, and continue to believe that these types of works, whether it's in wood or other forms, is what makes us stronger as a people and makes us different in a good way, different than a lot of others. So as I said, my mother came from Colorado, her father came from Germany. I can look on a map and say, this is where my grandfather came from. I have no clue what it's like. I'll never probably ever walk in those areas. I don't know what the art is like. I don't know what the culture is like. So, so that's one, and I see that as what many of Americans, their life is like. All they can do is say, this is where I came from. I don't know anything about it. This makes us different. We are here in our homelands, walking where our ancestors walked and our grandparents walked, doing what they did, and has some significance to it and a purpose. It's not just art, it's a container to hold things. It's so forth. So that's, and I think we need to continue to pass that on to our next generation. These make you who you are, or part of what makes you who you are. So that's kind of my driving force behind all of this. It's just a way of life. It was, again, not just the woodworking part of it, which was really not something I did a lot of, but it's just the way of life. Out in the boats, fishing, gathering berries, gathering seaweed, looking forward to herring eggs, looking forward to salmon eggs and seaweed, these things that now I look back and go, yeah, this is, not everybody got to do that. But this was just a way of life. We just expected, okay, the week after 4th of July, you went wild strawberry picking or nagoonberry picking. You got seaweed in April, the big tides in April. You got, all these types of things that you kind of take for granted as a youngster. And then as you get a little older and start to realize not everyone got to do that. I can go get strawberries at Costco, or I can, or I can go get crab at Fred Meyer's, but it's not the same. It's not the same. And so the inspiration to me was to be outdoors. I loved being outdoors. I still love being outdoors. Rain, shine, doesn't matter. Snow, be outdoors. That's the inspiration. But from that, I can take back into my artwork or my carvings and so forth. Some of the stories, the history. How do I depict that? How can I depict somebody picking berries without being the real person? How can I get a crab? How can I depict that? How can I depict our way of life? So those are the inspirations that now drive me from my childhood. But I didn't realize as a child that there was really good things. Being out on a fishing boat with my father, and it was 10 days and not seeing another person, and it was like tortured. The teenager doesn't want to be out with your father for 10 days without seeing another person, But now I treasure those memories, because again, not everyone's doing that. Not everyone can do that. Not everyone wants to do that, and so that to me, the inspiration is now from a child, not necessarily as a child, because we don't understand what we've got. And so that's kind of my things that drive me now, and then my grandmother and her wisdom of passing on information that I now still to this day try to practice and try to walk in those shoes. My father's mother, had wisdom that I would never have been able to achieve. Yet she went to the 4th grade and I graduated from college. And she had this wisdom that I never had. So again, how she gained it, where she gained it from, was from some previous ancestor. And that is some additional information or wisdom that I try to live by. It developed first with trying to pass it on to these students in school, but then working with mentors and realizing that it's not easy. At times it appears easier once you get a little practice. And, so when you're looking at somebody that knows how to do something and you go, oh, that's easy, until you see how many failures you had at trying to duplicate what they did. That's kind of what has driven me. That also is to say, they can do it, I can do it. Our ancestors did it without the tools I have, without the technology that I have. So if they could do it, and I got to be able to do it somehow. I had many mentors, besides our elders just telling me oral history pieces. I worked with Steve Brown many years, off and on. Ernie Smeltzer, Tlingit from Ketchikan, Mick Beasley, and Dwayne Bosch. So in the art forms, there's many different mentors I've had in tool making, the woodworking, the design work, David Boxley. There's the list goes on and on as far as being able to do the artwork portion of it now. But again, the elders have passed on their knowledge to me and entrusted me. I have elders still to this day that will stop by and tell me oral history pieces that are not Chukanadi, not even Dakhtang, because they trust that I'm not going to duplicate or do things for the open market to make money off of. Luckily, I don't have to do this for the money side of it, like some other artists have to do. I can do these things, and then, not have to put it, like I say, on open market and try to make money off of somebody else's oral history piece. I understand why some people do. They have to make a living in this day and age. But, they trust me, and it's an honor. I look at it, it's an honor. I mean, they come and tell me this. Yesterday I had someone tell me Wushkitan history, and I'm going, yeah, they didn't have to tell me this. They trusted that I'm not going to just go out there and make something and say, hey, look at this is a Wushkitan piece, and I can sell it now because I won't. So as far as mentors, I have mentors that are in the woodworking, carving, design side, and then I have mentors as the elders that are telling me oral history pieces that I can work with. And at times they'll come back and, there's a double-sided sword on that, is that now they'll say, hey, now that you know this, I sure could use a, okay, and I don't think they're telling me just because they think they're going to come back and get out of me a piece of work. They're telling me because they know I enjoy the oral history side of it. So I see them as mentors as well as those that have taught me how to make a bentwood box or how to make a helmet or whatever else. They're also my mentors. So, the mentor list is long, very long, huge. The challenge of doing something I've not done before, but I know that was done. I've made 2 little amulets years and years and years ago. And to this day, I don't even know where they are anymore. I gave them away to someone or something. I no longer possess them. But Huna Kaach was known for their amulet work. No one in Hoonah is doing that. So why can't I? And I don't know how to do it yet. I can do them with the Dremel tool and so forth and so on. Yeah, I can do that. I know I can. But they didn't have Dremel tools. How did they do them? I don't know. That's a challenge. Someday I hope to be able to do it. Not necessarily make out thousands of them, but just to make a couple of them and say, okay, I did it. I know I can do them more if I have to. Those are types of things. What is it? This helmet I have here is the first one that I made as a helmet in a face shield. Can I make it? Yeah, I know I can make it. But so again, words are cheap. Yeah, I can do it. Yeah, right. Do it. Don't just say, yeah, I can do it. So again, the challenge is to do something I haven't done before, that was done or could have been done if they had the materials, but they didn't have whatever it was. And so if they had it, they would have done it. A fish trap. I've made a fish trap. I've never used it yet, but it was a challenge. They made fish traps. I can make a fish trap. And, so I had an uncle that always teased me and said, well, just because you're a college graduate, you're still stupid. You're not going to know, you can't catch anything with that fish trap. And so my challenge is someday I will catch something so I can look up at him and say, I did it. And it had nothing to do with college. So, again, it's those types of challenges. I know they did it. How did they do them? I don't know, sometimes without trying. So that's my challenge, is keep on doing something you haven't done. I've done hundreds of bentwood boxes. Okay, I can make a bentwood box. So I made a double bentwood box. I never made one before. My next challenge is, can I make it a little bit better? Can I make it bigger? What is it? The imagination is my limitation. So, that's, I've never made a true raven rattle yet. Someday I gotta make a raven rattle. Why? Because I've never done it. And others did. So can I do it? It's my challenge to myself, rather than someone else coming up and saying, you can't do it. That doesn't inspire me as much as just knowing that when studying the work of previous ancestors in collections of materials and saying they did it. So what's keeping you from not doing it? So self-challenge, a journey of making it, and going on and being able to then, once I have it, then to pass it on. Again, if somebody came up and said, how would you do? Well, this is how I did. Again, I don't know that I know I don't have all the answers. So this is how, pass it on. How do I pass it on? I can't pass it on unless I know it. And that goes back to the very beginning of my work, is you cannot teach it without knowing it. And, I can look in a book and talk about it from a picture, but that doesn't mean I know anything about what I'm talking about. And so that's where I come from, is I've got practice at doing this, so now this is how I did it. Fishing with a halibut hook. I've made halibut hooks. I've never caught anything, not even a mosquito. So, is it really a good halibut hook, or is it just a piece of artwork? Someday I got to take this bone-barbed halibut hook out and catch more than a bullhead. So, I can say, yes, I made a halibut hook and I caught something. Again, the challenge. Just, the bentwood ball box, it's all trying to show that I could make a bentwood box different. I've seen other people make bentwood boxes similar to this, and I wanted to see if I could challenge myself to make one similar to theirs. So that's, and again, it's just a figure with, putting the octopus tentacles in the tongue rather than just a plain tongue, and doing that. So this one doesn't have a lot of history or story behind it other than that, showing a personal challenge. A bentwood bowl that has just form line designs on it. Again, not really telling any real story other than its form line design, because it's the challenge of making a bentwood bowl that has the grooves on the inside, figuring out how to make the corners match was a little bit of a challenge versus just a plain bentwood box that doesn't have it carved out on the inside. Was there. The octopus bowl I have there is an alder bowl, and I just wanted to see if I could make this alder bowl represent the Chukanadi octopus, and be a kind of bowl that might have been used for seal oil or hooligan oil. And so it was again my challenge to say, can you do it? I've got some pieces I've been working on for years just because I work a little bit and then off and on and off and on. Other pieces, I can get them done. I can do a bentwood box in, a couple, 2 days, if I really put my time to it. And stuff like that. I may not get a design on it, but the box is bent. Things like that. So it all depends on what it is. Totem pole, a kutia, 6 months. And again, they vary. And like I say, I have some ideas on things that would take me, and then some of the things I stopped working on because it's failing, and stop and look at it and figure out what I did wrong and how do I fix it next time. And so there'll probably never be completed objects in my collection. There are pieces that I'll never complete because they're failing at it right now. And so for whatever reason, whether it was my fault or something else that went wrong. So it varies because I do so many different types of things. Like you can see, smaller bowls, bigger boxes, totem poles, and so forth. So, Gunalchéesh Kaach Yaas, that whole project took me 6 years or 7 years. So, so again, how do you come up with it? Sitting down and working with mentors, learning from the mentors, the elders, in order to do the Kagwantan house posts in Gunalchéesh Kaach Yaas in Barley Cove. I had to sit with the elder for 3 days, listening to oral history. And again, I didn't learn everything about Kagwantans or the Hoonah Kagwantans. I learned 3 days worth, enough to do a house post or design a house post. So the project depends on what I'm going to have to work on, and then days go from there, or months or years. I have the rattle here that, like I said, I haven't done the raven rattle, but I wanted to do a rattle, and but it was there. I've seen pictures of, and I saw some in museums similar to this. But can I do them? And so on it, I put the eagle, my moiety, and made just to be able to use if I needed it. The bear helmet, with face shield was one that was this past winter's project. And again, the bear being one of the crests of the true Canadian, so I felt I could utilize that without interfering with some other cultural clan group or oral history piece. And, so seeing if I could truly make a helmet and a face shield. I've done hats and in that, but not a true helmet and face shield, so that was my challenge there. Would have been probably a bear hide or something, you know, but, and actually I have them, but I didn't want to cut it up for that. And then I have the mask, the humanoid mask. Just again, a challenge to see if I can make one that is similar to some of the older faces that you might see, and then I had the octopus tentacles on it for the true Canadian again. And then I have a Bentley box here that has the geometric weavers designs on it, you know, and so it's just trying to represent some of the, you know, patterns that the weavers had for telling their stories, their ways. The salmon heads, salmon berries, bear tracks through the salmonberry bushes, and so forth. But it was made for, like I said earlier, for a weaver to put their supplies in. And so I can pull them out as somebody made it so hard to get them in there, but yeah. So then say, or I can lift it out all at once. So that she has room for whatever she wants. All her basket materials. And again, I guarantee you this is not all her basket materials, but that's what she has. So she can, I said, well, when you go wherever to work, you can take it with you. And the lid is those are, I think those are ferns or you know, again, they all have, for weavers, all have a meaning. I've seen other more contemporary, well, they're all, I would say this is a contemporary piece. I design and then either painting on some material or woodworking type of, yes, carving and woodworking. That's my emphasis is the woodworking side of that form line work. You know, I can teach some form line design work as well as the woodworking side. I don't think I could design any work if I didn't know how to draw first. Without being able to draw, all I can do is copy what I see in a book, which is somebody else's work, which I don't like to do. I don't do. You'll see similar shapes or objects on a design, but I don't copy another one I can't copy the Mona Lisa and put my name on it. It is not mine, I copied it. So again, you might see an octopus bowl like I have here, but it's not that same shape or the same octopus. It's an octopus bowl. Okay, that's fine. So yeah, but woodworking carving is with form line. Yellow cedar, a red cedar, an alder, another alder piece, red cedar face shield, yellow cedar helmet. The yellow cedar was the two Bentley boxes, and this face is another alder. The mask is another alder piece. So And that's the primary woods that I would be generally working in is either red cedar, yellow cedar, or alder. So as far as, there are times when some of my woodworking or my carving tool handles and that might have been made out of other hardwoods, but didn't need to be. My first work with totem work was with, again, students that we did. The students, we did in the school system 2 8-foot totems that are still in the Hoonah schools facility, or actually it's now the city's facility, but that was my first ones, and then moved on into Bartlett Cove Project or Glacier Bay National Park and Preserve Project of Gunalchéesh Kaach Yaas, and then totems and that here in Hoonah. And so I'm currently carving, if we counted the house posts and all that I've worked on, I'm now starting my 12th totem pole. So, all trying to tell some story. And again, the term story, we have to be careful. I don't want it to be a, Jack and the Beanstalk story. It's primarily oral history, but we're telling something. So, the Bartlett Cove projects, those at the schools or the cities, those that are out in the public in the city now, all have some history to them, and story representing some either oral history of Hoonah, the Tlingits, and or the last one was of the military veterans. And again, none of them did I carve solely on my own. I had assistants or help that worked on all of them, students. Yeah, and currently same thing is going on. So, and again, it's trying to tell some story. We all have a story to tell. Well, and we all can do it in art form or picture form somehow, whether we draw it on paper or draw it in the sand or, carve it on a piece of wood. We have a story to tell. And how do you tell it? That's the process that we're going through, is how do we tell it? And so, yeah, and that's my challenge is how do I design it to tell it? And so, I had a situation, I've had several, where I've been commissioned by someone to do something, and I always say, well, rather than just sit down and carve you a box or a face mask or something, tell me some of your history. Tell me something about your life. Let me design it, telling your story. Because now this means something to you, other than it's a piece of artwork. And that's because that's the way we would have looked at it. We did it for a purpose. We're telling some story. So in order for you to enjoy really what you're looking at, you need to know what the story is. And so in doing totem poles or kutillas, that's the same thing. Is what's the history behind it, and how do I tell it? And so yeah, like I said, I'm starting on my 12th one, and I don't know how many more I have left. I have lots of stories, but how many I have left to do, I don't know. So we'll see where it goes. Because I can teach somebody how to carve something, but it's just an empty vessel if you know nothing about what it is. So all I have is a bowl that's an eagle. Okay, what's the story behind it? I don't know. Well, then it's just an empty bowl. I've got a bowl here with an octopus on it. What's the story? Well, if I didn't have a story behind it, it's just an empty bowl. It's just got an octopus on it. And so, again, to me, it's no different than I go to Fred Meyer's and buy a porcelain bowl that has flowers. What's the story? I don't know. I thought it was pretty. There's no story to it. So there's no history to it. There's no message to it. So again, that to me is in my teaching as well as for myself is, you know, is there a meaning behind what you're doing other than you just see if you can paint a nice straight line or you can make a curve on something? So what? You know, okay, good. What's it mean? Man, I can draw a straight line. So again, that part of the medium, part of the learning is you also have to learn the history, the cultural. What's your story? What are you trying to depict? Why? In the end, it's much more complex than just making whatever it is. And how do I teach that? I don't know. You know, I mean, in this day and age, things are different. I have three apprentices right now working on this kutia with me, and how do I teach them? They want to know what I'm doing. You know, one youngster, all he wants to do is, oh, I want to do a raven head. And what's the purpose? What's the story? Well, it's a raven. That's not the story. So again, young needs to continue to learn, but how do I teach them? You need to know more than just this. And so it's very complex, as is Tlingit culture. Very complex. Not as easy as it looks. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it. Depending on what I'm trying to make, from a kutia, a totem, would be my ads. Making a bentwood box would be probably a steamer. So again, depending on the project or the piece that I'm trying to work with, you know, the tools vary, but the tools are extremely important. Without a good tool, I can't do a good project. If I have a lousy tool, I'll end up with a lousy project. That's as I look at it. And so my knives are important. I have 20 plus adze blades. Probably have 200 carving knives. I use 6. The others are impressive, I guess, to some people, but they're not important. No, you know, so again, it all depends on what it is. But yeah, the knives and the adze blades for my woodworking is extremely important. I need to be able to do. So without them, I couldn't do the work I do. Okay, I'm working on a kutia or a totem pole for the city of Hoonah right now. It's going to be a ducting ton story or oral history piece, and it's I've talked with the ducting tons. They said go for it, and so it'll be sometime probably this next year. It will be ready to be dedicated here in Hoonah. So that's my current project until it gets to be, you know, fall, and then I'll go back inside in my own shop and work on something. I have materials for another helmet, a different material, so it's another challenge. So can I do another one a little different than what I've done before? I've got ideas of things I want to continue to try to make. Like I mentioned, I've never made a raven rattle. That's down the list somewhere. Another double bentwood box somehow different than the one I've done. How can I do it differently and better than what I've done here? So, but currently it's a kutia, 22 foot yellow cedar totem for the city of Hoonah. So that's my current project, plus teaching some apprentices on how to do some carving and work themselves. And I would teach it to everyone, anyone and everyone, if I could, that want to learn. I look at it as personally, for me personally, those that took their time to teach me, I owe them the respect to pass it on. for if I don't pass it on, they wasted their time. For when I go, it goes with me. And they took the time to teach me. So why can't I take the time to teach someone else? You know, so I welcome, you know, anyone that wants to learn. You know, I badger those that I've taught in the past, some knowledge that if they're not doing it, I'll badger them that they need to do more, and you know, and so forth. You know, it's my, you know, prodding of them. You know, I look at it kind of like an old English story about Johnny Appleseed, where he planted seeds, and how many apple trees grew, we don't know. How many times I gave somebody an idea or taught them something, and when will it go from there, or where will it go? I don't know. You know, that seed might sprout 20 years from now, and it might sprout next week. I don't know. It's not up to me, but I must pass it on. I'm obligated to. I must honor those that gave me their time and honored me. So that's kind of how I look at it. But yes, I am a mentor in some now, and will continue. There are some that are worked in other mediums that I admire. Lincoln Wallace, as a silversmith and engraver, I thought he was, you know, fantastic. Looking at the man, he was severely crippled with arthritis. I got started working with him a little bit when he asked me to make handles for his tools that would fit his crippled hands, you know, and I knew nothing about, I knew something about woodworking and nothing about what he needed, and so I worked with him on that. But watching him do form line work and working in the silver and gold was, you know, to me, mind-boggling when I watched how crippled he was, and yet he could make it look so easy. You know, other David Williams, looking at some of the old work of Willie Marks, old work in comparison to my work, but you know, in the 40s and 50s, some of their work, in seeing that, there was, you know, others that did things, Leo Houston Jr., that I thought was, you know, he was better at it than I was at the time. Now, I'm not judging who's better now, but at the time he was better than I was. How can I try to match him? So, you know, there was people like that, watching people that made baskets, which I don't do, but now realizing the artwork that they did in order to do it was, you know, wow, really? You know, how could they do this? And so, yeah, there were others like that, though it wasn't as commercial as it is now. So therefore, a lot of people that may have had the knowledge on how to do the woodworking in art form didn't do it because it wasn't a financial reward for them, and they needed to make money in this day and age to survive, so they didn't do it then. Billy Wilson Sr., watching him do his silver. Wow, you know, I worked in the store. I'd collect every silver coin I could so that I could go get some pieces from him, and you know, and so forth. So again, people like that, even though I don't do metal, I tried it, and I failed at it, and I probably will never try it again. You know, it's just one of those things. I you know, should I? Yeah, probably I should, but you know, I've got other woodworking projects in mind that I can work with right now, and you know, I dabble every now and then in a few little pieces of metal, but I don't have. I probably won't be around long enough to get to that point that I need something else to do. So those are some of the local people that I look back on now and say, wow, you know, you know, bead workers. there's absolutely no way. I mean, I've drawn designs for people, you know, for Mary Johnson and Ida Kadashan and people like that did beadwork. But, you know, Esther Caves, you know, but you're not going to get me to do beadwork. You know, poking my fingers is not my thing. So I'll, you know, I'll stick to these things I'm doing. You know, the contemporary artists, there's, again, we can go to those that are weavers or bead workers and some of the woodworkers, you know, and it's always interesting to see their styles because we all do it differently. You know, Jeff Scaffold does his carvings in form line. They're different than mine, which they should be. I don't want anybody to copy me and I don't want to copy them. But you know, there's certain rules that we should follow in form line. But you know, how do you do it? Some of that. It's always interesting to watch and see who's doing these things. There's not a lot of woodworker people in artists in Hoonah right now. I'd like to see more. There's some that are from Hoonah that are out of town and doing things. But, you know, some of my mentors, you know, I see their work, you know, Wayne Price, carving canoes. I tried carving a canoe. The one I worked on is still here in Hoonah. Probably will never get back in the water unless we just want to see how it floats or doesn't float. But, you know, I'll never do another canoe, I'm sure. It's just one of those things. It's a skill that I don't really have mastered. I can assure anybody I'm not a canoe carver. So how do I, you know, I appreciate their work, but it's not something I'm going to do. You know, trying to repair or do a little bit of repair on a canoe that Dwayne Bosch was the primary carver of. Seeing that, but again, I'm not going to try to carve a canoe. It's just you watch it, you look at it, you study it, and you go, okay, I understand a little bit, but that's not what I'm doing. So, but it has changed in several different ways. You know, one is I've never seen old bent boxes that are round like this one. You know, I'm not saying they didn't have them. I just haven't seen them. Maybe they didn't. Things like that. Okay, that's a contemporary type of work. You know, but I think it's okay to change. I personally don't like the idea of a lot of different colors and paints. That's just a personal choice of mine. Traditionally, we only worked with the 3 colors. That's all I work with. But that's a personal choice. I know others do differently. They will use a variety of colors. And I'm not saying it's not good work, but that's a big change. Totem poles, kutillas, we didn't paint originally because our paint was a temporary paint. We didn't paint our exterior work. Now you see totems with lots of different paint on it. Is it good? Sure. It's not what was done. I'm not saying it's wrong, but has it changed? Yes. For me personally, if I want to use lots of paint, why don't I just paint the design faster than carving it? But is it better? Not necessarily, you know. So you know, again, those are things that have changed. Style-wise, yeah, you'll see some style faces carved differently than they used to be. And again, maybe it's because our tools are different than what they used for whatever reason, or some of us may have learned from a picture or a book, and not from a mentor, and therefore we're trying to interpret what we're looking at and really not interpreting it properly according to what that artist would have done. So, there are things like that I look at and I go, yeah, okay, they for me, looking at it, they didn't do it properly, This bentwood chest that I have here is very contemporary. I mean, that's weaving patterns on it, not form line design patterns on it. But I knew that when I did it. For it was designed to be for a weaver to use, not a woodworking carver to use. And so I wanted it to mean something to them, not me. So, there are things like that you'll see. My one double bentwood box there. I've never seen one like that. Again, I don't know if there's one like that or not. I've seen similar double bentwood boxes, but not one quite like that. Now, is it because I failed a little bit at mine and mine just looks different, or not? But, so there are things that are different. The hair on the mask, we often now use horse hair. Well, traditionally they use human hair. So is that different? Well, it is different. Is it wrong? Well, that's up to the individual to decide whether that's right or wrong. There are changes, yes. And there would have been changes from what was before to what it is now. Just because of our, we have access to other materials. As soon as they had access to copper, they utilized it. As soon as they had access to abalone, they utilized it. So that was, our ancestors were very inventive and so they utilized whatever they could find. And so that's, hopefully we continue to do that. Always rule. Otherwise, all we're going to do is copy what they've already done. Again, copying it doesn't do it. You've got to be able to keep on moving on and telling different stories with different mediums. Individually, whether or not I challenge myself to another project or another item that I've never done before is a small victories when I make it. My real goal is that to pass on to the future generations the fact that they can do whatever it is that was done or that some format of what was done and still understand that, like I said earlier, it makes them special people because they're doing what their ancestors did for a purpose. Not for the purpose of making money, but for the purpose of making it usable. Make a bowl that you can use. I carve a simple spoon and I tell my wife, here's a spoon. She goes, oh, I'm going to put it up on the shelf, and then goes to the store and buys a wooden spoon. And I go, you just insulted me. I just carved you a wooden spoon and now you went and bought one. And well, you carved that. Well, that's why I carved it. Again, it's, pass on, why did we do it? Why did we make bentwood boxes? Because I couldn't get a cardboard box. I needed to put something in something. I needed food in this. I needed a tattoo in this. How do I do it? Why did I do a helmet? Because if I went to battle, I needed some protection, And so passing that on to the next generations of people is don't do it just because it's money, but it has a purpose in life. Now we don't go to war with these helmets anymore, but it had a purpose then, and that's what made us different than somebody else. Why did we do bentwood bowls? Because I needed a bowl. I couldn't eat my fish chowder without a bowl, So those are types of things. Passing that on, that's my goal. If it goes on to one other person, that's great. If it goes on to two, I've done better because now it's two that know besides just me. And that's my goal, is to pass it on. I got it. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. It's just to show off. It's not that purpose. I would love to see more people doing it. Not because it's just because I think it's important that we continue to do what we all would love to learn how to do, and we all can do it. That's the thing is I'm not a trained artist other than through my mentors, and so my stick figures have broken legs, so so if I can do it, anyone can do it. I'd love to see more people doing it.